Okay, let's jump right in and actually perform some analysis. This is going to be a real life case study. I'm going to be looking at the suburb of Frankston in Victoria, which has long been a favourite of the investor, the working class investor. It's been a great investment class suburb in Victoria. Um, that's why I'm going to choose it. It's got water on one side, it's got some interesting characteristics around the location of it, the geographical location, also public housing and income and rental distributions. It's a really good example that shows all the different things that location, um, how location can affect the valuation of a property. Um, but then, yeah, Frankston is obviously a darling of the investor, so it might be relevant to you, who knows. So um, I'm going to be doing a couple of demonstrations on Frankston. I'm going to be loading up our main Ripehouse suburb analysis page with Frankston loaded and doing a basic demo to start with, a quick demo of the functionality, just so you can really understand the page and the dynamics of the page and the different little widgets and tools across the page for you to use. Yeah, then I'm going to jump into more of an advanced demo. I'm going to talk, coming at it from two approaches. One of it is where your strategy is already predetermined. You've set your criteria, your property types, your purchase price, you buy and hold, or you renovate to profit, your flipping strategy. You know, that is already set in stone. You're coming into Ripehouse with that defined. You're really finding in suburbs that you choose and you identify as where you want to invest, you can really find the best street or the best location within that suburb that matches that strategy. Or you might have a complete blank slate. You've heard about Frankston, you want to invest there, you've got some advice elsewhere, you're coming into Ripehouse with Frankston locked in, you want to formulate a strategy based on what Frankston offers you as an investor. What are the unique characteristics of Frankston that stand out, that provide the most value, or then sink in most effectively with a strategy to create profit? Okay, so let's get started in the basic analysis example, just so you can really get familiarization with how the suburb analysis page is structured and all the little widgets on there. I'm starting here at the Ripehouse homepage. This is ripehouse.com.au. Here we've got this nice big toolbar at the top here where we can enter in the suburb that we want to analyze. And of course, we're going to start typing in Frankston and selecting Frankston from the list there. Once we click on search, it's going to direct us through to the analysis page. This is preloading the suburb into the map. It's defining the suburb area there with the white outline. It's highlighting outside of that suburb area the local government area in a green overlay with a dotted line around it, which you can see down here near the water. I might move Frankston up into the middle of the map so we can just get our bearings a little bit. We can zoom in and out in the same way that you usually can on a map. We can get it nice and positioned in the center there. All the red icons that you see on the map are individual properties. The darker the icon, the more expensive the property based on the suburb average, and the lighter the icon, the cheaper the property is compared to the suburb average. The really white icons that you see there are auction or price withheld properties, but they're still showed there on the map for you to understand and get a grasp of all the properties. Those light to dark are broken into quartile prices. So those colours then relate over here to the icons on the left. So you can really get a quick feel for the price distribution of properties within Frankston. You can see here that 330 is the suburb median for the current sample size of properties on the market. The lower quartile is 282,500 and the upper quartile is 427. So you can basically draw the assumption that the average property is 330k. The Renovator's Delight or original condition properties are around that 280k mark, and the renovated or new properties. This is a blanket simplification, but it does prove to be quite accurate. The renovated properties or the off-the-plan properties are around that 430k mark. It just gives you a really nice little snapshot of the price distribution in the suburb. And there'll be a little bit of information I'll sort of reveal about how you can sync that information into your strategy later on. Down the left-hand side is where I like to get started. You've got some toggles that relate to individual location elements within the suburb, and these toggles generally turn things on and off within the map. So if we start here with public housing, we're turning overlays onto the map. The darker the red, the higher the concentration of public housing. Any overlay that we see on the map, we can hover across, and then view the actual value of that potential that figure. So I've picked the darkest here, the highest concentration of public housing. We can see over on the left-hand side here that Frankston, as an average, has 4% public housing. The local government area has 2.8%, and Victoria, as a total, has 2.8%. So this area in the red here must have a lot of public housing, and it has 22% public housing in this particular area. Now, every one of these polygons or shaded overlays on the map relates to around approximately 100 properties, and those are grouped into an area that defines 100 properties, and we've developed the algorithms that create those groups, and then the surrounding areas that we can then plot on a map. And within these groups, we're defining how much public housing is in there, and all the other variables that you'll see shortly. So let's turn public housing off. It gets a little bit confusing if you add multiple layers on at the one time. What we're seeing now is owner-occupier versus rental. So we've split the average. The average in this suburb is 35.9%. Anything that's below the average, as far as more so less rentals than 35.9%, will be in the green shading. So a stronger proportion of owner-occupiers. Anything above 35.9% of rentals is stronger proportion of rentals compared to the suburb average, and that's highlighted in yellow. Once again, the darker the yellow, the higher the concentration of rentals. The darker the green, the higher the concentration of owner-occupiers in that particular zone. Rent's another interesting one. Anything you see here in the purple is above average rent. So in these areas, you could achieve, or the average achievable rent is higher than the average. The darker the purple, the higher the rent. Similarly, the darker the purple here, the higher the incomes. Now this is something that is, all of these things I can safely say are unique to Ripehouse. You won't see these things anywhere else, especially visibly on a map like this. This is particularly unique to Ripehouse. These are investment hotspots that you can cycle on and off the map. It's basically showing you where, over the last 12 months, there's been stronger, sustained, high-priced pockets of property within this suburb. So in Frankston, we've got a strong, high-priced area of property around the water, around the beach. These might have water views, and you would expect higher-priced pockets of property, and these are defined as blue overlays on the map. The stronger the blue, the higher the price compared to the average in the suburb. Now let's bear in mind that these are not slightly above average. These are high-priced clusters, sustained high-priced clusters surrounded by other high-priced clusters moving towards a peak. So some suburbs don't have, or have a very even distribution of property price, or it's a random, or it's seemingly attached to public housing, so there's no definable cluster and peak. This might be a mountain if you're looking at height, and it doesn't just suddenly appear out of a cliff. It's a gentle slope up towards a peak. So we can see on here the peak, and that's in the blue, and the trough is in the green, and that's a cold zone, which is a sustained lower price pocket of property. Now, there's none existing in Frankston at the moment, but we also have investment hotspots called gentrification zones, and these are pockets of property within the suburb that are going up faster than the suburb average. So if Frankston, as an example, is going up at 10% per annum, these gentrification zones are going up faster than 10%, and this is sustained over 12 months. So you've got a trend there, and anything above that 10% is going to be highlighted as an orange overlay on the map. So Frankston, what you can draw from that conclusion is going up without any gentrification overlays, is going up in value at quite a steady rate across the whole board, and that's over the 12 months. I could just switch on now amenities into the suburb. So this is going to give you a really quick snapshot. Each icon on the map there relates to a traffic, shop or schools element. You can see there's lots of bus routes through Frankston coming down the main Cranbourne Road towards the shopping district, which is down here towards the water. We can see all the shopping elements. As an example, we can see a school down here. So they're all marked on the map there for you to get a really good feel of what's in the suburb. And then obviously every property on the market is mapped to the closest of those elements to work out the valuation of that property. Just a quick summary form. I've got the crime information I've plotted and had our data team plot crime for every suburb in Australia and how that relates to the local government area and the state around it. So Frankston, in regards to crime compared to its Suburbs surrounding it and to Victoria as a large has a very high crime rate, so that's something that needs to be taken into consideration and might not fit your risk profile. That might then be offset, or you might receive a double whammy if you're in a high percentage of public housing within Frankston. It's something to consider, but it's all there. The information is all there. Down here on the right, so once we've sort of got a really good feel of the suburb and how it's comprised, we've looked at the overlays. We can leave them on and off. We want to look at the individual properties. Now we can click on an individual property icon, and that's going to display over the top right here the basic property details and the listing revision history. So Ripehouse shows you the first day that it popped on the market, the first listing, every subsequent relisting or price amendment by the agent. If it's gone from auction to fixed price to auction, that's all captured, every single update of the property across the major property portals in Australia. So we were a property search aggregator. We bring it all together, we show you the property, and we give you the links back to the original source, so you can then proceed with further information and your due diligence with the agent. So we're bringing all that together the same way that Google finds property listings. We're bringing that together and showing you the full listing history, so you can see how it's been discounted, and you can use that in your negotiation. This property's only been on the market for 10 days and was originally listed at 360. It hasn't been revised. Let's now divert our attention to the bottom right hand corner, where we have a list of all the properties in Frankston in a table format. We can sort this table, very importantly, by price, by discount amount. So based on that listing history, we can view this property at the top of the list has been discounted 9%. We can click the more information button, and that's going to show us the full listing history of that property. Started off on the market at 500k on the 19th of December. It was revised down to 450k 37 days ago. It's a 9% discount. We can see that full listing revision history, and we can sort by discounted amount if that matches your strategy. We can also see the days on market for individual properties, and we can sort by that. So if we want to target properties that have been on the market for a long time, that's stale stock, we can start there, or we can target the fresh stock that's been on the market for the minimum amount of time. So yeah, we can click on the icons. We can find properties that are sitting in certain locations. This property is sitting in a high percentage of public housing, and then we can filter properties. So we only want to show 2-bedroom properties on the map. We might only want to show properties located in, for example, a blue chip zone, or properties located by no public housing, 0% public housing, or you're happy to accept the maximum potential of public housing in the area. You can then also similarly define how much rental density is surrounding the area. Do you want it to be above average rental density or below average? You can select exactly the minimum constraint of rental density that you're willing to accept in your purchase. And then you're obviously able to select the property class or the property type to really fine-tune your search there. I won't execute that search. I don't really want to take any of these properties off the map just for my example. But this one that I've selected is in public housing. This is the next step. You want to see how that location of that property affects its valuation. So let's click on the price valuation button, and that's going to get a pop-up in front of us now, which is very visual in the way that it represents what's happening. You can see how one element flows into the next, and you can see how at the other end it spits out a final valuation for the property. So this is a 5-bedroom house, which might fall out of the range of larger sample size, so we might be having some outliers in the mix here. But based on the sample size and what data we have available, we've determined the average property 5-bedroom house within Frankston has a starting valuation of $430,000. This particular property is not located in any investment hotspot zone, as I talked about before, the blue chip cold zone gentrification. So that's not affecting the valuation. It's 820 metres away from a school, so based on the type of suburb that Frankston is, that has a negative 2% adjustment on the valuation. It's quite away from shopping, 1,400 metres, negative 5%, but it is very close to public transport, so the bus route, getting them into that transport, into the shopping hub or to the amenities or to the unis is only 157 metres away to that transport hub. So that's a great 2% positive effect on the valuation of property, but this property is in the 14% concentration of public housing, which on the Frankston example is on the high side and has a negative 1.7% effect on the valuation of this particular property. So all those things, it spits out a final valuation of 401,000. So the asking price for this property is 550. It hasn't been revised downwards. It hasn't been discounted. There's a big difference between those two numbers, and we can tweak. So based on your assessment of the condition of this property, viewing the photos and talking with the agent, is it been renovated? Is it in renovator's delight condition? You can really set, is it below average, average, or above average? If you deem it's above average condition, the set comparable sales price is 460, runs through the same filters and spits out 429. So this property must be extremely nice, or the agent is setting a very overly ambitious first listing price for the property. So how do we get this comparable sales valuation? We've got all the comparable listings down here below. It's found 4 that are directly comparable within Frankston, and these are the values for them. You can then click through and view the actual original listing, and these help you really assess the condition of this property and the comparable condition.